Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here because today we're doing something new. We're going to be talking about Native American history, the true history of what happened before this country became the United States. If that sounds awesome, definitely hit that subscribe button. By the way, I am Brandy. I am also known as Bone Throwing. I normally do witch history and makeup, but today I switched it up and we're going to do Native American history and makeup as well. And I think that you guys, this story is rough. It's a rough one, as most of them are, and they will be. If this is a video that you feel like that you're going to really like and connect with, let me know in the comments below, and I can make more, obviously, because I love doing history. It's just a lot of fun for me. So, without further ado, let us go ahead and get this party started. All right, so first things first, let's clip this hair back. By the way, I hope you guys are doing fantastic and having a wonderful week. My week has been very busy, which is why the videos I've been posting a little bit late. Oh wow, look at that. That's a madness. That is some madness. All right, so our story today begins back when America was first being started, but we're going to focus on the Battle of Horseshoe Bend, how it came around, how it came about, how many people were lost, what happened, all that fun stuff, okay? But first, we got to talk about one of the biggest jackasses in history, and his name is Andrew Jackson. Yes, Andrew Jackson is built his political career on the genocide of Native Americans. Yes, he sure did. He did. So let's talk about old Andrew for a minute. Andrew, he was born on March 18th of 1776. He was born into a Scotch-Irish family that had migrated to America, of course. First, they were located in Pennsylvania, him and his family, as when he was a boy. And then they relocated to South Carolina. And now, unfortunately, his dad passed away. Andrew's dad passed away before he was born, like just a few weeks before he was born. Because you got to know that right now, during this time, this is a time where the U.S. is trying to be independent from Britain. Okay, they're trying to be, from England, whatever. They're going through their independence from England. Okay, and so this kind of sparks a little bit of a fire under our supposedly amazing president, Andrew Jackson. He wasn't president yet. He actually studied law. He wasn't very, very smart, but he could read. And I say he wasn't very smart only because he didn't get very much schooling and things like that, unfortunately. So, but he did start reading a lot of law books, of course, and eventually he got accepted into the bar and became a lawyer. And the kind of lawyer that he was a land lawyer, basically. Like if somebody couldn't pay the taxes on their land, then they came and got their land, basically. And but before all that, now Jackson did have some hard. He did go through some hard times during the during the revolution against England. He lost his mom and his brothers and sisters, so he was an orphan. And so when he was 13, he became a courier for the military that was at the front lines of the revolution. And so I think this actually kind of sparked his political interest in this as well. You know what I mean? So anyway, old Andrew, he's 13. He's doing his little courier thing. Well, like I say, as he gets older, he starts to delve into land law. Why? Well, it's actually pretty fucked up. So, as he studies this law, he gets admitted to the bar in western South Carolina, which is now Tennessee. Yeah, we're going to get there, don't you worry, of how he acquired this land. And so, obviously, because he was a land lawyer, like he basically would just, wait for people not to be able to pay their taxes or whatnot, and he would go and he would seize their land. Yeah, such a nice guy, right? I actually seized some land near Nashville and made it into another plantation because he already had one. It's called Hermitage. Now he made another one in Nashville with over 150 slaves. Yeah. So that's what he was doing. He was basically trying to buy up land that people could no longer buy or pay for, and it was going to be his. Or he was going to turn it into something else. Anyway, as we move forward, we find out that this man is an expert in Indian massacres. He cannot stand Native Americans. He hates them. I can't stress to you enough how much hate this man has for some people that tried to help them. So what they end up doing is they assimilate. They're trying to assimilate the Native Americans by charging them for their land, knowing that they can't pay for it because in the Native world, land doesn't belong to anybody. We belong to the land, That's something that Andrew Jackson didn't understand. He was like, well, it's land. It's your property. You got to pay for it, And so this ended up displacing a lot of Native Americans because especially the Choctaws and the Chickasaw, they could not pay for the taxes on their land. And so it was taken away, 20,000 acres. It was ridiculous amounts. By taking their land, they have essentially cut them off from being able to eat or to live or to anything like that. Okay? That is what happens. They displace them off their land and then they have nowhere to go. So where do they go? They start going to the plantations. So they start filling up the plantations. This is what Jackson wants. He wants them to assimilate to English life, basically. He wants to colonize them. And so he brings in a guy to actually do this. Yes. He brings in like a specialty guy to do this, okay? And it's astonishing what this man has done. But before I tell you about that guy, Andrew Jackson's now on a bender, okay? He's wanting more land. He's getting more greedy. You know what I mean? So around 1801, he decides that he's going to take control of the Tennessee militia and he's going to do something about it. Now, he may have had their land and he may have been able to displace them in a few places, but there was one group that was not going to give up as easily as the Chickasaw and Choctaw did, and that is the Muskogee Creek Nation. Now, there was a lower creek and an upper creek. Now, the lower creeks had assimilated to life with the colonists. Like, they really had no choice, though, guys, because remember, they've been displaced from their land, so now they're having to work for these colonies, they're having to work for these plantations, and doing all these things, and, it's just not a fun time. This is not a fun time for them right now. And anyway, so the upper creeks are the ones that Andrew Jackson, at first, he didn't mess with. He was more concentrated on the ones that were in the lower creeks, the ones that were almost kind of assimilated, so because they depended on the Indians to go out and find food for them. Like that was because even though the natives taught them when they first got there, way like 200 years earlier, that this is how you do it, they still didn't want to do it. They still had this mindset of, no, we're not going to do that because back in England, I was a fighter. I wasn't a hunter-gatherer or whatever. It basically just takes over these people's lives. It's just a terrible thing. So the lower creeks lived by the Chattahoochee, Flint, and the Appalachia rivers. The lower creeks lived west in the valley of Coosa, Tallapoosa, and now the Alabama rivers. Which is why I'm so hell-bent on doing this one today because the Battle of Horseshoe Bend, that's something I heard about growing up. but I'm telling you, I never heard it like this before, and it's going to get worse. So he decides, Andrew Jackson has to carry out his final solution, which is the elimination of the indigenous communities east of the Mississippi through forcible removal. Okay? Yeah. So he's working on the lower creeks. And the lower creeks, they're kind of doing their thing. They're assimilating like they're doing exactly what Andrew's telling them to do because they're just trying to not be hurt. They're trying to not be killed. You feel me? So like I said, this is after America has become independent from England, okay? And the creeks were divided because of colonialism. You have the lower creeks doing exactly what Andrew Jackson and all the other settlers wanted them to do. And then you had the upper creeks who were like, no, we're going to keep doing what we do, Now, of course, Andrew did not like that. He wanted them to assimilate. He wanted them to be just like them, pay taxes, have a debt, all this crazy stuff that nobody should have to have, They taught them ownership of land, which is something, you had to teach Native Americans because, like I say, we don't own land. The land owns us, At least that's what I was taught growing up. So, but anyway, yeah. So at the time of the independence, there were some creeks the lower creeks were kind of like on Jackson's side, because like I say, they didn't have much choice in the matter. So the upper creeks decide they're tired of the way that their people are being treated. They don't like the fact that they've cut off the food from Florida, which is where the Spanish reside at this time. They've cut off their food supply, so they have nothing to eat, and to the lower creeks. So they have to depend on the colonizers. And the upper creeks got really mad about this. They're like, no, don't assimilate. We don't want you to assimilate to be people like them, And so this is when they started raising up against this man that I haven't told you guys about yet. And I will tell you guys about it right now. So a man named Benjamin Hawkins. That's the guy I was telling you about earlier that is making his way into this because his job is to assimilate the Native American way of life into colonialism. So he teaches them, he wants the U.S. beliefs to be instilled in the Native Americans, okay? So he teaches them profit motive, privatization of property. Yeah, like I say, you have to teach that. Debt, gaining a lot of wealth. Sorry, my mouth's not working today. And of course, taught them slavery. And then this allowed the settlers to gain land to assimilate the natives because once they were charging them for their property and then they knew they couldn't pay because they didn't have currency. Their currency was trading with other indigenous peoples. Oh my God, this is so bonkers. So anyway, the upper creeks, they get pissed and they're like, I don't like this. We don't like this. So the upper creeks banded together with the Tecumseh and the Shawnee Confederation because they didn't like what Hawkins had done to the lower creeks over the last 20 years. You know what I mean? This is something that he's been there for 20 years assimilating these creeks and trying to get them to be in the colonial way of life. And so now the Muskogee Creek Nation is very upset. The uppers, they're like, no, we're not going to allow this to happen anymore. Point blank, period. This is when the Traditionalist Fighters was formed, and they were called the Native American, they were called the Red Stick Nation. Okay, well, they carried red sticks, and basically what they did to this Benjamin guy is they would attack anybody that was associated with this Benjamin fellow, okay, the guy that was trying to assimilate all the natives. They were only attacking people that were associated with him. They were not attacking anybody else. They weren't burning people's houses down or anything like that. Anybody that was associated with the guy assimilating everybody, the Creeks were going after. These red stick guys were going after. Well, guess what? Guess who this pissed off? pissed off Andrew Jackson so much. So without even a blessing, because remember he is the head of the militia now of Tennessee, right? And because they had acquired the lands of the Choctaw and all that, so he had made Tennessee a state in 1796. Yeah, but in 1801, this is when our party starts, and it's the worst party I've ever heard. The Red Sticks created chaos to affect Hawkins, this guy, right? So he could stop assimilating everybody because nobody wants that. So they attacked everybody in his program, and it was very, very effective. It was very effective, and so this is why Andrew Jackson was called in, because they were like, these natives, they're just kind of, they know the land. You gotta think, they know the land. They know how to sneak around. They know how to be quiet. They know how to do these things because this is their land, and so they could sneak up behind you. You wouldn't even know they were there, and so it doesn't really go into much detail about what they did to these followers or these people that was with this guy, but I know it wasn't very good. The natives, they rise up, right? They're like, okay, so we got Muskogee, we've got slaves, runaway slaves that had joined, okay? And now Andrew is like, okay, cool. I'm going to go ahead and start getting my militia ready too, okay? But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the allies that I have that are Creek or Choctaw or Chickasaw or Cherokee, and I'm going to put them on the front lines, and then I'm going to put my dudes behind them, and then we're going to fight the Red Sticks, okay? So all these slaves, they bring their families and everything to Horseshoe Bend, which is around the Tallapoosa River. This was a place that was set up for people to come if they wanted to be in the Red Stick clan. 3 months before the Battle of Horseshoe Bend, Jackson goes around and he just starts like massacring as many natives as he possibly can. And it gets to a boiling point, and so that's when the Red Sticks and everything gather at the Tallapoosa River, okay? And now I'm going to have to give you guys some exact numbers. Okay, so many of the Shawnee fighters and escaped slaves, like I say, they came to the Red Sticks. They went to the Tallapoosa River at Horseshoe Bend to get ready for the fight. And Jackson goes ahead and, creates his army. He's got the Tennessee militia. He does not have the backing of the United States government. He's just going to do what he wants to do. But I think by the time the Battle of Horseshoe Bend gets there, he does have permission, because for 3 months he just goes around killing like pretty much any native that he can find, because he's just that kind of guy. And so he mobilizes the Lower Creek fighters. Remember, he's got some Lower Creeks fighting for him. This is very important. And he mobilizes them and some Cherokee allies against the Red Sticks. Now, in March 1814, this is when everything comes to a head, okay? Jackson captures 300 Red Stick wives and children to make the Red Sticks give up, okay? Now, there were 1,000 Red Stick fighters, okay? That includes, we'll say Native American fighters, because that includes the ones that were on the front line of Jackson's army, okay? So they fought, and they fought, and they fought, and they fought. And out of 1,000 of those natives, including the allies, 800 were killed. Andrew Jackson took 300 of their women and children to make them surrender. It gets so much worse, guys. It gets so much worse. If anybody would like to guess how many men that Andrew Jackson lost? Anybody? 49. He lost 49 men, and 800 natives lost their lives. Okay? And do you know how he claimed this to the government? Self-defense. He claimed self-defense. Not only that, he got an award for it. the president at the time, Madison, was like, oh, good job, bro. You know? And not only that, this is going to be a little bit deranged, and it's very, very sick. They would use the skin of the natives that they have massacred, okay, and fashion bridles, make bridles out of the skin, and send it back to the wives of Tennessee as like a trophy. Imagine you've already destroyed a whole nation of natives. You've taken their women and children and done God knows what with them. We don't know what he did with them. I mean, I'm pretty sure I know what he did with them, but you know, here we are. The bridal thing really hits me hard because now, I mean, and they desecrate the body to do that. That is so awful. It's so awful. He's no different from a native scalping somebody. That he's no different from something like that happening. And that's not even what they were doing. They were just trying to protect their heritage and their culture. Okay? So they, of course, they were forced to give up, and there was a treaty put forth that they had to sign. And let me tell you about this shit. I'm going to read something to you guys about what he said. What Andrew Jackson said after this battle. Okay. I feel like it needs to be heard. He said, and I have to read it off paper because it's quotes. Okay. The fiends of the Tallapoosa will no longer murder our wives and children or disturb the quiet of our borders. They have disappeared from the face of the earth. How lamentable it is that the path to peace should lead through blood and over the carcasses of the slain. But it is in the disposition of that providence which afflicts partial evil to produce greater good. I'm sorry, but that sounds like a Nazi message to me. That sounds like something Hitler would say. I mean, am I wrong? Like, to get to our progress, we've got to kill a bunch of people? Like, are you kidding me? That's so Hitlerish. Very much so Hitlerish, all right? So they have to sign this treaty, and it's called the Jackson's Treaty. You know, of course it is. The Treaty of Fort Jackson in 1814, and they forced the Muskogees to sign this piece of paper. Oh my God, I can't stand it. Saying that they lost, quote, under principles of national justice and honorable war. Where's the honor in that war? Show it to me. Where is it at? I need to see it. Because let me explain something. Think of yourself as maybe you haven't traveled the country or the world. I haven't, unfortunately. I haven't gotten that chance. And I go to Scotland, okay, and I see a castle. And the castle is beautiful. And I've never seen it before. I've never been there. So it's new to me, right? But somebody lives in the castle. Well, I want the castle because I feel like I deserve it because I found it, right? So they have to fight me for their own home, but the only thing they can use are butter knives, and I have a cannonball. How is that honorable? 800 men died, but yet he only lost 49. Make that shit make sense, please. And guess what? You know what else is sad? Is this man ran for two consecutive terms. He was the first president to do that. They elected this dude. So not only that, when they sign this treaty, the Muskogees have to leave their land. Yep. And this includes the allies of Andrew Jackson. If anybody that is Muskogee, whether they have assimilated to the colonial way of life or they're still, their normal, regular spiritual self, they have to go. Now, this made a lot of people mad because these people are like, hey, man, we fought for you. We did all these things. We assimilated, and now you're pushing us away? Like, what is that? Not only that, did they have to leave, creating the Trail of Tears, they had to give up 23 million acres of their land to the U.S. government. Yeah. That just puts a knife in my heart and twists it. I feel that he said and then Jackson says the punishment should teach them not to mess with the U.S. He says, we bleed our enemies in such cases to get them to their senses. Quote unquote. That's what that man said. Okay. So the conquest is no longer with the British Army at this point, obviously. It is with the Native Americans. And they want their land. And it ain't going to stop until they get it. Okay? And this is somebody that was the head of the country for 8 years. He paved his political route with genocide. Point blank period. There's no other way to say it. He carved his political road through genocide of the Native American people. As the treaty pushed the Muskogee west, he won a commission from the president, like I said, from President Madison as a major U.S. general of the Army and was praised for his genocide. Oh, congratulations. I love the bridle that you sent my wife. Oh, she just loves it. Like, make it. Oh, God. Come on. These are the things they don't teach you guys in these history books. And these are things that need to be said. Because if any first genocide ever happened, it was in this country. Now, this goes on more, but I couldn't go on for very much longer today. So I'm going to pick up right where we left off. It's just going to be the Seminoles. Okay? The Seminoles don't give up without a fight either. But the Red Stick Clan really stood for standing firm in their spirituality, which was not believing in land ownership, not believing in having to have this currency in order to buy things. They didn't want to assimilate to that way of life. And so the Red Sticks decided to rise up. And unfortunately, they lost so many lives. And not only that, their bodies were desecrated, made into bridles, sent out as trophies. This man was elected twice as president and praised for his genocide of the Native American community that lived here way before anybody else came. I want you guys to kind of think about that for a minute, especially when we have this presidential campaign going on right now. What people do in their life will affect what they do with the presidency. Andrew Jackson was not a good president, in my personal opinion. And anybody back then that voted for somebody that was totally fine with killing in the name of the United States, no. It makes me very, very sad, but unfortunately, that's our story for today. Yes, my Native friends, I do have Creek blood in me, and this story always hits me right in my heart. Because these were my peoples, and the only thing they were trying to do was live their life in the best way that they could and without having to assimilate. They tried to coexist, but then they got their trade supplies cut off from other, it turned into a big mess once Andrew stood in. When Andrew Jackson walks in, he's head of the militia and he's head of all these things. That's when everything goes haywire. And he doesn't stop there. But don't worry, we'll pick up again next week right where we left off, talking about the Seminoles and what they did. So, if you guys like this video today, please drop me a follow, drop a comment. I will leave what I use on my face in the comments down below or in the notes or whatever. And yeah, I'm going to try on Thursdays to be doing Native history, and then on Mondays doing witch history. So if that interests you guys, definitely subscribe. And I hope you guys have an amazing week and an amazing weekend. And I will see you on Monday. Much love.